If you see anybody who is always a victim, don't be friends with them. They will get you in trouble. Nothing you do in this world, they will not take offense. You can be talking about biscuits, they'll be like, are you saying it because we had starvation? Is it because of the starvation that you are now using biscuits? Oh my one concealese lórí pé inú dídùn ọlọ́rẹ̀ tó ní gan ṣe, ọmọ aṣọ di nǹkan mímọ́ lọ́wọ́. Why are you talking like that? Is it because of the invasion of Onitsha? You are talking about crossing river. Maybe you are trying to, let's say for instance, you are trying to get on a boat in going from maybe VI to Ikorodu. Let's say, that's how those soldiers crossed River Niger and came into Onitsha and killed people. Nothing. They will find a way to connect it to their pain. Because that's the currency they spend, pain. And I'm going to finish what I was saying before Kenzie wrote what he wrote in the comment section. Let me say what I was saying. I will finish it. When we talk about people that died, but the people who died, their own people also killed people from the north. That's number one. Number two, the numbers that they give you is a lie. And the reason they gave you that number is because it will arouse something in you, that compassion. Somebody say, divide Nigeria, you know, gree us go. And if you really want that, if you want your land, you have 58 representatives in Abuja, 15 senators, 43 House of Rep members. Let them push the bill. But guess what? You're not getting anything apart from your own region, your own ancestral space. Stop looking for oil in River State. Stop trying to take over Olukobi people in Delta State. Stay in your space and own it. God bless you. I will finish what I'm saying. When the incident in the north, in the east happened, Northerners complained about it. When the ones, and they published stuff about it. When the one in the north happened, the Easterners also published something about it. There's a document that was published in 1966. The Eastern region released a document in 66 October. The document is titled Pogrom. P-O-G-O-R-M. Which I always tell people, as much as I acknowledge the fact that there were killings and it was terrible, I still don't know if it's a pogrom. I don't know if it was state sanctioned. But that's what the Eastern region called it. They said it was pogrom. And they said the number of people that died were between 7,000 and 8,000 people. Now, that's a lot. That's a lot. Even 2 people is too much. I mean, the number is too much. 1 person is even too much. So 2 people will definitely be too much, right? So you say 7,000 to 8,000 people. So that is enough to even make you bleed in your heart. But that's not enough for somebody who wants to drive an agenda. So October of 66, the number was 7,000 to 8,000. Nobody could tell, but give or take. January. Nobody said the people see they die. Oh, the person don't die finish. Oh, may God rest their soul. They don't die. They don't, do it and they want to bury them, mourn them. It's over. But by January, the number don't go to 10,000. In the mouth of none other than Ojukwu. He said now 10,000 people die. Oh, that will be 7,000 to 8,000 you talk for October. In 3 months, don't become 10,000. When did the 2,000 to 3,000 people die in your dream? But you know the thing, now people, so now human beings, so more just leave them 10,000, okay. By May of that year, the number went to 30,000. That number that he gave in May is the one that all of them still repeat it today. You see it in Frederick Forsyth, you see it in Achebe, you even see it in Chimamanda. She said it last week. Was it last week or the other? The video I played last week. Oh, 30,000, 30,000, 30,000, 30,000. Where? How? You're a bigot. How dare you ask that question? I'm not asking the question because I'm a bigot. I'm asking the question because the number they change every moon day, every market, every new moon, every market day, the number they change. Like, how? By 1969, that number changed to 50,000. The same event of 66, so every other kinikon, every major kinikon, Ojukuma to 2 number from 7 to 8,000 to 10,000, from 10,000 to 30,000, from 10,000 to 50,000. When you hear it as a young person in Nigeria today, hey, you feel bad. Now, should you feel bad? Of course you should feel bad. But do you really know why that thing happened? The other example I wanted to give is this one. And this will be the last one, and we have to move on. If you see the images from the war, the children, swollen bellies, thin legs, thin hands, fluffy hair, you can even see the rib cages. Something in you feels like, this should not have happened. A person puts that picture in your face and tells you, see what your fathers did to my fathers. Before you know it, you're already opening your door in Nigeria, Yoruba politics. Why? Because you're ignorant. And because they also know that you're a good person. See, let me tell you something. In what I've studied though, if you show that picture to Juku, it will not do him anything. Nothing. If you like, show him. It's a mind that is malleable. It's a soft heart that you can guilt trip. Hardened hearts cannot be guilt tripped. So they know that you are good people, great nation. You just be like, yeah, this is bad. And by the way, that feeling is the right feeling. If you see images from the war and you feel bad, that's the right reaction. If you don't feel bad for the people, please check yourself. Maybe you're allowing hate to enter. If you see those children, if you see those women, if you see how they were eating, I have videos I cannot even put out. I mean, people put it out, that's how I got it, but I can't even like discuss those videos because it's terrible. But if that's all you're doing, that's the problem. That's the second problem. The first problem is that if you're not feeling bad, that's a problem. But if you are feeling bad, and you stop at feeling bad based on what you have seen, then you also have a problem. The question you ask yourself is this: how come these children are like this, and why did they become like this? And I'm going to give you one. There are many answers, though. There's a blockade answer. There's a starvation answer. There's what the federal government did. There's what Papa said, Awolowo, which I will say forever, it was the right thing to do. There's no sane person that will be feeding the soldiers, his enemy soldiers, food to come and fight him. Ojukwu was going to war. He had no plans for the feeding of his own people, let alone the feeding of his own soldiers. And I think I should spend some time on this before we move on. Listen, guys. Everything I say here, don't worry, I'll even be telling you the sources. You will see this in John de Senjo, the Nigerian Civil War. If you go back to the book by Ajayi Crowther, Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther, he published that book in 1866 on the banks of the Niger River. In that book, he explained what food was like in the eastern region in 1857 when he got to Onitsha. Bear in mind that Onitsha happened to be, see, if you ever find that book, no matter how terrible you think Onitsha is, Onitsha was actually the top. If Onitsha was the standard, and it was the way Samuel Ajayi Crowther described it, how do you think the other places were? How did he describe it? I've talked about it. We'll talk about it another time. It was a very terrible sight. But here's the problem. The eastern region, the Igbo land itself has always had a challenge with protein-rich food. Long before Nigeria, long before Igbo, they have always had a problem with protein. They are not known for animal husbandry. And I'm looking for a way to say it so it doesn't appear. I don't want to sound like we're insulting. We're discussing history, but I don't want to make it look as if I'm weaponizing history. So here's the point. You don't know for animal husbandry. Then your land, you have like 3 issues with your land. Number one, it is too small. If you read the Willings Commission report of 1958, do you know what it said about the eastern region? It said that the land could not support them. The soil could not support them. That's what, no be me. I read it last week. The Willings Commission report of 1958 said the soil could not support them. So that means that you already have issues with feeding. Then with the protein stuff, why don't they have the food? A few reasons. 3. Number 1, it was too small for them. Number 2, most of it was not arable. Number 3, even the arable fertile land, no plenty like that. So arable means that you already so how did they take care of the protein problem from before Nigeria's independence? The way they took care of that issue was to import. They imported. But you say, and this is what I thought when I was reading this stuff, but there's River Niger that goes through Onitsha. Are you saying that they can't, there is Imo River, are you saying that they can't just fish? They remember the numbers. The people were more. The people were more than the land could support. Again, this is not a jab. It's just what happened. Listen, that's the most densely populated area in Nigeria. You know what? Let me read something. You know why? Because when I say these things, sincerely, I know what it sounds like, but it's the truth. So I'm going to read it. Hopefully, when you hear it being read, your blood will not boil as much. That's the best I can do for you. I'm doing this because I don't want you to feel bad. I just want to tell you exactly how it happened. Ah, dear. The book is called The Nigerian Civil War by John Desenjo. Just a second. Everything I'm saying, by the way, is true. I'm not reading it because I'm trying to confirm what I'm saying. I'm reading because I think it might be easier to take, because I'm also putting myself in your shoes. I think it might be easier to take, when it's read, than if I am just saying it. All right. I found it. The Nigerian Civil War by John Desenjo. Starvation, malnutrition, and infant mortality have always had high incidence throughout Nigeria, the last rising to a phenomenal 50% in some places. But even before the war began, the situation was deteriorating in the Igbo areas of the east. By far the most densely populated part of the country, only Rwanda, Burundi, and the Nile Valley match it in Africa. It relied traditionally and heavily on imported food, especially high-protein foods. These imports were paid for by the export of palm oil and kernels, and by the remittances sent home from Igbos working outside the East. I'm going to quickly explain something there. I mentioned earlier that the stuff they were, you just said it, I read it. The man is not Yoruba. His name is John Desenjo. They always had to import stuff. Listen, even in 1857, it was the Ajayi Crowther that had to introduce corn, agbado. Listen, corn is not native to Nigeria. Okay? No, I think I should read that Ajayi Crowther thing as well, because I'm quoting it a lot and it's not fair. It's not fair that I'm not reading that one too. I didn't want to say everything, which is fair, but I think I should. Let me just read, because I'm saying Ajayi Crowther. It would just be like I said a lie. Mambo. Charge delivered on the banks of the Niger by Samuel Ajayi Crowther. That's the title of the book. Charge delivered on the banks of the Niger. I'll go back to the book on the Civil War in a bit. Just please stay with me. This book was published in 1866. Okay? I'll read something to you about. By the way, agbado, corn is not native to Nigeria. Is the Americans that own it. The Native Americans. They're called Indians. And them get them, right? But it was introduced at different points. With the East, it was introduced by the missionaries that went with Ajayi Crowther. When we arrived at Onitsha in 1857, we found the people in a state of idleness and with its attendant evils. They were scantily and filthily clothed, and in a state bordering upon starvation, especially between the cessation of the old and the ripeness of the new crops. The old crops were barely sufficient to supply their scanty wants for 9 months of the year. They did not grow more, although the exuberant fertile soil was ready to yield them a 100-fold increase in return. The remaining 3 months was a time of dearth and scarcity, when they had to live upon fruits and other edible plants, the spontaneous produce of the fields, as might be found in the bushes anywhere. But since the introduction of the cassava plant into the country by Mr. Taylor and other fruit trees, and the people have been taught to raise a second crop of Indian corn by Mr. John Smart, a scripture reader, and how to grow their yams better by the united example of all the mission agents, they have had enough to eat and to spare. The introduction of the cassava plants into the country is universally acknowledged as one of the greatest temporal blessings brought to them by their zealous minister. The trading establishment has contributed greatly to stimulate them to labor in collecting palm oil for sale, for which they are paid in Manchester goods. And now they are getting into the habit of going about more cleanly and decently apparelled. Here's the point. The point is that the idea of full sufficiency has always been a problem, even back in the 19th century. And by the way, like I said, Onitsha was the standard. The one I read now, Onitsha was the only one who had something like a kingo. Somebody said, what comes to mind? Yam Festival. Yes, New Yam Festival. Huh? That's why I was laughing when somebody came and said, you Yoruba people, we saw the Oni, it was doing Yam Festival. When you just started, you are copying us. I was like... It's important to say these things, okay? But I think we play too much in Nigeria. Everybody now thinks they are something. I mean, everybody's something in Jesus' name, but nobody say... You get the point. There's always been an issue of food. And then when you look at the Nigerian Civil War, the book, what it mentions here is that they had two ways of raising funds to be able to buy those things that they were importing. Number one was that they used the money they got from the sale of palm oil and palm kernel, which some of them there sold. People in Igbo land sold, but majority of the money for that was actually from outside Igbo land, but was in the eastern region, but not Igbo land. The other part was the fact that they had to repatriate money. What do you call this money? Remittances that we do these days. Remittances. They were doing it back then. The remittances actually helped to fund the importation of high protein food into the eastern region before the war. Now, when the man then said every Igbo person should return, he didn't have plans for how they were going to work, and they were questioning him about it. He didn't answer them. They had questions about it. When you put all of these things together, it's clear that a lot of the things that they needed would come from abroad. When he then said that everybody should return to the east, there was no money for that. That's one. Number two, you had the issue of food being used to feed the soldiers instead of getting to the people. And then number three, I want to go very quickly. Number three, you have the issue of Ojukwu himself refusing to allow his people to get access to food. You find it in the letter by Robert Goldstein. It was written August 1968. That letter is in the book by Alabi Sama, but you can find it online. I think you can find it online. When you understand what really happened, then it becomes very clear that, listen, this person who is telling you they hate me, they did not feed me, people died. Whilst I acknowledge the terrible thing that happened to those people and I sympathize with them, you cannot blackmail me with that, because not once do you ever mention Ojukwu in everything that led to the death of those people. Not once do you mention the soldiers that were, taking the food that was meant for the people. All you are saying is that Awo did this, Nigeria did this, federal government did this. Therefore, you have to be able to stand away and not allow people to gaslight you with those things. And so for Yoruba people who are you're a human being, I mean, that's how you should be. You unitara, you have that passion, you have that if you have compassion, as it were, for people, you should have compassion, but you should not be naive. People use your naivety against you, and they're going to weaponize your empathy. If you talk to me now, for instance, you're from the East, and tell me the pain of the Igbos, of course, I acknowledge the terrible things that happened. And if we go into the details, there are many terrible things that happened to those people because of Nigeria. Right? But in truth, if you really want to discuss those things, you cannot separate the Igbo from the things happening in Igbo land. And once you do that, everything changes. You're able to acknowledge the evil, but you can't blackmail me with, oh, it's your fault. Like, it's not my fault. You have parents. Right? So that's about it. If you consider the aggressive and disrespectful ways they've been conducting themselves, no pity. You know why I tell people not to go that way? Because you're going to allow people to change you and make you who they are. And that's why I say, still empathize. You know why? Because that's what makes you human. It's not about what they do. It's not about what they are doing or the narratives. If, for instance, you hear that, in the Eastern region, of course I will feel bad about it. Why? They are human beings. The point is just that you cannot use that thing to blackmail me. That's my own. It's like what happened with Boko Haram. You know, when we hear the stuff about Boko Haram these days, for us, it's just like another day. Like, it's just news. But real people die. Real people, it affects real people. So you feel for those people like, can you let that out? But that does not mean that, imagine somebody comes now from Borno and says to you, look at what's happening. Tinubu is the president. Tinubu caused this Boko Haram issue. Like, wait, oh. Of course, no. You can't say because I have empathy towards you now, I should now say it's Tinubu's fault. It's Tinubu's responsibility to fix it. But it's not Tinubu's fault that it is happening. So if you're talking about responsibility, talk about it. But when you start, see what your people did to my people. You guys are bad people. Nigeria has destroyed us. Yoruba people, see what you did. I'm like, wait, no. At that point, what you are doing is not. You don't need my empathy. At that point, you need the other side. The misbehavior is a result of being overly pampered by Nigerian government. That's true, actually. There's no ethnic group in Nigeria that has been pampered more than the Igbos. None. And it started in the 40s. There's none. It's like when you have a brat for a child, we have to also take responsibility for that, because that child did not make himself a brat. What I recommend is tough love. There is love there. So you're not doing anything because you are hating anybody. This is not hate. This is not, I don't hate you, but there is tough love. The kind of love that will make you talk to your brother and you will reach his soul and it will break down in tears and fix up. That kind of love. People think love is your brother will do something terrible. You'll not be like, he's my brother. Yeah, we are all together. Which is what Peter Obi was doing in that statement, in that speech he gave earlier. And he's somebody's brother. And so, no, that's not love. That is destruction. You're destroying your own home by yourself. Love can be tough. It's not pampering. It's not pandering. It can be tough. Like, don't do it like this. Do it this way. But what I don't advocate, I don't do myself, is hate. Like, I don't like this, but I just hate them. I hate them. They've done this. I hate them. You know why? Your heart. Guard your heart. Once you allow that thing to start, you will never be able to, it will be very difficult to stop. Anyone you just see their name, you just hear somebody's name is Emeka, you just be like, Ole. Meanwhile, it might actually be a good person. You will find the balance. You will find the balance. You will find the balance. Just be firm, be fair, but be firm. But don't hate and go to the extreme. That other extreme is dark. All right. My people on the platform are all on different calls. Okay, Kenzie is not on the call, so let's take a Kenzie.
The narrative from the eastern side, how it is entirely declined from your side. You entirely don't want to hear anything as long as it doesn't suit or sit well with what you perceive is the truth. The point is the facts. I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong. As a matter of fact, I agree with a good number of things you have pointed out. I've always had a similar view, even though I'm not going to make it very plain. But I somehow agree with a good number of points you made. Regardless, it is very, very obvious that you somewhat have. Let me not put it in that. Let me not use that language. Yes, let me just make it very, very plain.
But you know why?
Why?
Why is because, so when I read books, I usually read with an open mind.
Are you sure?
Shebi, you're not the one that reads for me. I'm telling you now. You're so done. I read with an open mind until I discover that the writer is taking me for granted. And so if you start your story from here and you are in A, and then suddenly you are in E, suddenly you are in G, and you are jumping and omitting what happened that led you to stuff. It's like people that give testimonies sometimes. They'll say things like, I was just at home and somebody called me and they just gave me $1 million or something. Can it happen? Of course. But they omit the fact that that person, they went to school together. The details that can help you understand what they are saying, they intentionally omit it in order to
Make it more
cause
fantastic.
sensation, to make it more fantastic. So I'm not saying they are lying. I'm not saying they are always lying. They lie sometimes. It's true. They lie sometimes. But generally speaking, there are gaps. And it's intentional. You know why? Because if I notice the gap in this one, let me give you an example. The interview I listened to yesterday, the guy said, the man is an elderly person. He said Victor Banjo should have gone to Lagos. If he had gone to Lagos, would have done it. It was his fault, and he was saying that thing. That's exactly what I saw in Madiebo's book. It was after I read when I read A Break in the Silence, that I discovered the letter. The book, by the way, was published by his own sister. I discovered the letter that Ojukwu had sent to Victor Banjo while he was in Benin. That gap, without that information, I would also blame Victor Banjo. And the person who intentionally omits that information wants me to blame Victor Banjo, which means that they are engineering me with the book that I use my money to buy. Therefore, I start feeling like, why are you now making me feel like a fool? Let me give another example. Read Achebe's book, There Was a Country. He said all kinds of things about Papa. Chief Awolowo. He said all kinds of things. And he said, he was quoted to have said, by the way, he's always saying somebody was quoted to have said. He would never say the person said something because he doesn't want to be like as if it was bad, but we know what he's doing. He said he was quoted to have said that starvation is a weapon of war. I cannot feed my enemies fatter so they can fight me harder. And then he said it was a terrible thing for him to say. And I say it wasn't terrible. The circumstances surrounding that statement, Achebe never mentioned it. Guess what? Awo mentioned it in 1983. I think I shared the stuff here the other day. Awo mentioned in 1983 what happened when he went to Port Harcourt and what he saw with the kids starving. The truth of the matter is that the children were starving while the federal government was sending food to them. And then he said, if they are starving like this, having kwashoko, yet you are sending food, but the food is being diverted by soldiers. And that's why I played the video here the other day. Look at the video when they all came to Lagos to surrender to Gowon. None of them had any problem with, look at the way they look now. All the officers were well fed. So you now say, if you are diverting food, maybe we shouldn't even be sending the food at all. They'll be like, oh, he hates Igbos. Were the Igbos the ones fight? Were the civilians fighting? It wasn't about the civilians. The civilians were not even eating the food when the food was being sent to them. That's one. Number two, none of them, maybe I've not, because I got to a point, I just got tired of the book. Achebe's book, Frederick Forsyth's book, they would not mention Robert Goldstein. And Goldstein was begging Ojukwu to allow food into the eastern region. Have you ever heard of that kind of thing? He said that the food, medicine, and milk were ready to be brought in, but Ojukwu said no land corridors. Why? because that was the way he was able to, what's this English word? Smuggle weapons into Biafra. And there's no land corridor. They should bring it through the air, because through the air you could just easily just bring whatever you want to bring in. My question is this: why did those people not mention Goldstein? Why did they not mention what Awolowo said in response to what they were saying? The answer is simple. Achebe worked in Radio Biafra. He worked with a man called Okonkon Ndem, who spread the propaganda that Awolowo was poisoning the food that they were sending to them. Meanwhile, he was eating that food. So as you read, you know, be like, how I go buy money? I will still buy the book, by the way. Like, I still buy ebook books. I don't mind. But I don't, and I have a number of them. Even some of them I just bought, so I don't have any problem reading. It's just that there is a feeling you have when you expect so much from an author like Chinua Achebe, for instance, and then you just see the omissions. When you now read different books, I'm not even saying, if you notice, I rarely mention Yoruba books in this matter, and it's intentional. I don't want it to look like, oh, you believe your own people, that's not the point. When you read from other sources, everything changes. I'll give another example. When Achebe talked about the Italian workers that were detained by Ojukwu, there's a way he said it. He almost, as a matter of fact, he excused Ojukwu. But you know that was the singular incident that caused many people in Europe to turn their backs on Biafra. But he would say it like, we had to do it because they were constituting Kinikon, they were supporting the enemy. And then people were begging, international crisis, so the world was begging for those Italian oil workers to be released. Ojukwu said no. It took a long time before he eventually acquiesced. But he just said it in passing. There's a reason for that. But you see, the point is, yeah, you can go on. But I'll just say one more thing. The point is that most writers have biases. When I write, if I'm writing, let's say for instance, if I'm writing Christian literature, I write based on the things I've been, how do I put it now? The things I believe, right? It's in the Bible, right? But it's also, there's also doctrinal nuances that you're only going to notice if you understand the difference between denominations and how people understand, Christianity. So if as an Igbo person you are writing a book, I understand that you are Igbo. I get it. So naturally, there are some things you're going to withhold or not say truly. But you see, the point is that you cannot write like that and be doing two things. Number one, claiming that you're objective. Number two, claiming that you are the victim. If you are going to omit stuff, omit it. But don't put in that thing that you are hated, you are victims, but you are better than everybody, which is what Ajebe was saying. In one burst of energy, we overtook Yoruba people. I'm like, when, where, how? So in one sentence, you are the victim. Another sentence, you are the victor. You are better than everybody. You are everything. But the things that made you the victim, you will not mention. I think it's playing on my intelligence. That's why, and a lot of people from the East do that. Maybe because, again, they're products of propaganda for the most part, and it's the truth. And this is me trying to be fair. You see it even in Chimamanda. Yes, it's in Chimamanda. It's the same thing. Ekezie, I'm sorry I spoke for long. Please continue.
It's all right. So I love your last, the last point you made concerning the fact that everybody most times are biased, and that also lead me to the direct question. Now, do you also have the same equivalent into Zionism in dissecting what is the truth and what is not, and what is the fact and what is not, when it's the contrary or opposite narrative? I'm talking about, let's say, from the other side. The Igbos are bringing up, or like you said, have a particular pattern of writing, and most times when you read it from the point of, let me see if, or trying to be very, very objective to try to sieve out what is the truth, what is factual, what is not really objective. How a writer or Yoruba writer or Northern writer, do you also want to actually, or do you want to grab everything and then as long as...
No, I don't. So let me give you an example. There's a book by Niya Borishade where was talking about the book is called...
the books, or these opposite books also have bias.
These are opposite books. Yes, this is an opposite book. I want to give an example. It's on Victor Banjo. And he was saying things about what he would have expected the Igbos to do. And I was like, why would you expect them to do that? He was writing from a Yoruba perspective. And I still felt like, to be honest, the book was solid. It is a solid book, very solid. But of course, there are points where it would be like, thinking like, oh, they're supposed to be able to do this for him. And I'm like, no. You are the one who knew what made you leave. I mean, your people were asking you to come into Yoruba land. You did not listen. You now went to join Biafra. Whatever you see there, now you cannot be saying that you expect them to do certain things for you. For instance, let me give you a very good example. When he was training the militia, he wanted to switch over to take on the 101st Brigade that eventually he was calling Liberation Army of Nigeria. And he said, the people like Madiebo, people like even Philip Effiong had issues with that because Madiebo primarily, to be honest, Philip Effiong is another thing. Madiebo because he was not Yoruba, he was not Igbo. And I was like, and then he said jealousy. So I was like, it can't just be that jealousy now. You can't just say it's jealousy. Until I read Madiebo's book, my brother, I saw the jealousy there. I don't like, so if you say if somebody does something because of jealousy, I don't like to just say, they are jealous of us. For me, I think it reduces the conversation. Until I now read Madiebo's book, Nigeria's Revolution, I'm like, nah. And then I now read about Madiebo in Adewale Ademoyega as well we struck. Put everything together like, oh, okay, this person talking jealousy is making sense. So I won't say he's jealous because one person said it. I want to be able to corroborate it. It's not anti-Igbo intellectualism that I do. I hope you don't. That's not the point. I'm not. It's not anti-Igbo. It's not like if I see any book from the East, I'm like, if I do that, how come I have my library full of them? I buy because I want to know their thoughts. But once you start and you start saying, we're the victim of everybody, and I notice that everybody is saying they're the victim. No. And by the way, I do that for every book, whether it's Oyinbo or it's academic rigor. You question everything, right? And then as you question it, you see the pattern and you're like, okay, so this is how these folks are. And again, listen to Peter Obi. Read Mogalu, Kingsley Mogalu. Look at Chimamanda. Read Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She wrote a book with another author. The book is called Chinua Achebe, Teacher of Light. I have the book. Read the book. Read what she was saying about what Awolowo did. She was not there. She had no information. But do I blame?
She was not there.
How will she be there?
In what perspective do you mean she was not there?
Listen, she was not a player in the war. Okay. Even if you were in that war, as long as you're not a player, I take your. Even listen, as you study, even you can even question some players. I hope you know. You can question. Let me give an example. I was not there when they had the first school. Adewale Ademoyega was there. He wrote a book, Why We Struck. I read the book the first time. That's his opinion. That was how he saw it. I read other books. I began to question Adewale Ademoyega. Is Yoruba? If you read the book, he said that they started planning these things in 65. But if you really think about it, he would say that the genesis of everything was in 1961 when he met Ifajuna and Nzogu. That's what he believed. You read special branch reports and discover that it was the last person that was brought in. The information from that book, from Nigerian Civil War, from Crisis and Conflict would make me question Adewale Ademoyega, although he was a player and I was not born. Why? Because sometimes everybody has blind sides. Nzogu had blind sides, for instance. Nzogu was just laser focused on, we want to say Nigeria, even killing people that he wasn't supposed to kill. What he did not know was that regardless of his focus, people had other plans, which is what you will find in Why We Struck Ademoyega, when he talks about how Madiebo was able to get him to surrender and how Ojukwu was playing him. But he did not know that before that thing happened. So I will read Adewale Ademoyega's book and I question it. So it's not your ethnicity that makes me say you are telling the truth. You can be Yoruba and be talking nonsense. You can be Yoruba and be. It's not about ethnicity. But the question is that I don't think people understand the fact that this thing is what folks do for every single source. It's not about like disdain for Igbo material. It's just that there is a pattern in Igbo books. The pattern is victimhood. And the reason is simple: propaganda. Thank you very much. Now let us move on.